Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's devotional. Our thought today is gonna come from 1 Corinthians 13, but it's more focused on the world's definition of love and affirmation. And I want to compare that to what Paul says in 1 Corinthians 13 about what love is. Starting in verse 4, Paul says, "Love suffers long and is kind. Love does not envy. Love does not parade itself. It is not puffed up. It does not behave rudely. It does not seek its own. Love is not provoked. Love thinks no evil." Verse 7, "Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things." Now, all of these characteristics of love, being suffering long and kind, I think most people in society would say, yeah, okay, I can go along with that. Love is not envious of others. Okay, yeah, sure. Love doesn't puff itself up and parade itself and is arrogant. Okay, yeah. Love doesn't behave rudely. Sure, shouldn't. It does not seek its own. It's not provoked. Sure. Love shouldn't think any evil. Okay, well, depending on how you define evil, I think most people, especially as it pertains to thinking evil of others or thinking, wishing ill will towards others, I think most people would agree with that, depending on how you define that phrase. And then in verse 7, it bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. And even though I think our world may not really understand what those terms mean, I think most people would, sure, yeah, okay, yeah, I can go along with that. But verse 6 is where I think the major issue between the difference of love, at least in terms of the application of love and the application of affirmation, is at odds with God's definition of love. Now, obviously, the term agape, it means self-sacrificial. It's one willing to serve another without any thought to oneself. To give up, whether it's liberties or even my own well-being, for someone else, just as Jesus did for us. And certainly, I don't think our world truly understands what that means. I don't think self-sacrificial love is what our world thinks of when they use the phrase to love someone. But especially verse 6, the characteristic being shown here, that love does not rejoice in iniquity. This term iniquity is lawlessness or sin, that which is without law, that which is against God. It rejoices in the truth. Now, this verse 6 is probably the most at odds with everything that the world believes in regarding love. See, to them, love doesn't even consider truth, because there really is no truth. All truth is subjective, it's not objective. Truth is dynamic, it changes, it can't really be defined, it's not set. And our world doesn't really, even if our world may acknowledge iniquity or lawlessness in some form or fashion, it doesn't care. Okay, in their mind, love doesn't care about somebody that's done something wrong. And refuses to change, especially. Doesn't care about lawlessness. Love overlooks those things. Love doesn't care about those things. Affirmation is a term we're hearing, or to affirm is a phrase that we're hearing a lot in connection with the world's concept of love. The term affirmation is defined as the assertion that something exists or is true. I think that's really interesting, given the definition of love that God gives us in verse 6. That love does not affirm iniquity. Love affirms truth. The assertion that something exists or is true. The term rejoice means to recognize the blessings of. Okay, if joy is the acknowledgement of being blessed, rejoicing is the expression of the blessing. Well, love does not consider iniquity or a life of iniquity, a life of lawlessness, as a blessing, as something to be approved or commended. Rather, love expresses the blessing of the truth. And this truth certainly is God's word. I think you could make a case that all things that are true, okay, certainly God's word being the primary focus there, but also honesty and integrity and not lying, not subverting that which is real or reality, I think can go hand in hand with that as well. And so I think it's interesting that in a society where love and affirmation is being twisted to say that you should just accept people, you can't condemn anyone for any type of lifestyle that they live in or choices they make. You can't say that someone has committed sin. You can't. That's a bigoted response to not affirm someone's lifestyle choices, or to not affirm that someone's self-perception of themselves regarding gender or whatever, that if you don't do that, that is hate. And hate is a whole different daily devotional, a whole different topic. It stands in, that whole concept, the whole idea stands in direct contradiction to what God says. Love is not to rejoice in iniquity. Okay, now that doesn't mean that iniquity, where a person commits sin and then repents and seeks to do what's right, that love doesn't come to play there. Sure it does, because that person no longer is in iniquity. That person has turned from the error and they're seeking to make themselves right. That's good. In fact, Paul focuses that on in 2 Corinthians regarding a whole separate issue, but that still applies regarding here in love. Love rejoices in that which is true. The truth of God's word, the truth of reality, the truth of life. Love rejoices, and as a result, it upholds, it exalts the truth. It does not exalt those things that are not right. It doesn't exalt sin or lawlessness. And therefore, love affirms that which is real. Okay, my emotions do not dictate reality. Whether or not I take offense to something does not dictate what's right and wrong. I can be offended by all manner of things. I can choose to be offended and even look for things to be offended by, and that doesn't make it wrong or somehow that you can't tell me those things and that's a crime to offend me. And Jesus says, I came not to bring peace, but a sword. Jesus knew full well that the things that he taught, that the things that would be taught in the gospel, they were going to be offensive to people. In fact, I've been told many times as a preacher that if you're not stepping on toes at some point, you're not doing your job. Okay, stepping on toes is kind of a way of saying if you're not in some form offending somebody, making somebody, I say offending, to step on toes is to kind of prick somebody's heart, I guess is more appropriate. Taking offense to it would mean that someone's being defensive and they're upset that I may be pointing that out, or somebody is pointing that out. But stepping on toes means that they're recognizing that this applies to them. God's word applies to all people. And it may cause offense, but that doesn't change the truth. And it doesn't change that love is to rejoice in the truth and not in iniquity. All right, that's just a short thought for you today. This is something I've been thinking about regarding love and affirmation, how often we hear that in today's society, today's media. And I just want to, I think it's important that we remind ourselves what love and affirmation means to God, and that it's in direct contrast to man. All right, Lord willing, our next devotion will be on Thursday. I hope to see you all then. Thank you, everybody.